Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. You know, I do really like showing you those battles where the outcome rests on a knife's edge. And today's battle is no exception. Today's hero probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. This is, of course, Flambas, the great Flambino himself, in a tier 9 domination battle here on the mountain range map. And Flambas is doing what he does best, playing destroyers. This is the Japanese tier 9 gunboat destroyer, the Kitakaze. It is an excellent ship. And before Flambas got famous on Twitch or YouTube, before he even rose to fame as the guy who will run down the middle in two brothers in any ship, regardless of whether or not it's suitable for the task, and still somehow managing to do it well, he was known for playing destroyers in the first Kings of the Sea tournament, long before he started streaming or doing YouTube videos. I can't even remember the name of the clan. I think it might have been Odin Mortis, but the first clan to win the first King of the Sea tournament, and I think also the second and probably the third King of the Sea tournament, Flambas was their dedicated destroyer player. He was known for making the gearing do things that gearings should not be capable of doing. And he's back doing what he does best, playing destroyers. Actually, you know what? Instead of being lazy, I went and looked up the results of the first Kings of the Sea tournament, and it wasn't Odin Mortis, it was Omni. Remarkably, it was Omni versus Omni in the final. They entered two teams, and both of their teams made it to the final. But it was the team that Flambas was on, captained by Strangers 123, and also featuring other players you may have heard of, like RNG Sama, who took the prize for the first win. Flambas, of course, in the gearing. Of course, he plays everything these days. Sometimes you can even catch him in a submarine or an aircraft carrier, but destroyers have always been his first love. Oh, speaking of destroyers, enemy Minsk. This is a prime example of what people mean when they say things like professionals are predictable, but the world is full of amateurs. Anybody who actually had a clue when coming across a Kitakaze in the opening seconds of a battle in a Minsk would use that ship's blistering speed and smokescreen to get the hell out of there. Instead, he's using his blistering speed to ensure that he doesn't stay inside the smokescreen that he just popped, and closes in for what I can only assume, given the terrible short range of the Minsk torpedoes, was a suicide torpedo run. And he got half of his wish. It was definitely suicidal. Flambas probably not counting on that because, well, a professional wouldn't have done that. And yet, that's what happened, and it's already cost Flambas half of his health and his engine, although obviously as a pro destroyer player he's running the last stand skill, so he can at least keep moving. This does not put him in a great position from which to start the rest of the battle. He's already lost half of his health, thanks to the suicidal Minsk. And with the enemy team taking 2 of the cap circles, despite the early kill, they're probably not going to be ahead for long. So the team need to either do something about those cap circles or capitalise on that early kill and start scoring more. So, quick word about the matchmaking. There is a carrier on each team, which is bad news for destroyers. Well, it's bad news for everybody except the carriers, but it's particularly bad news for the destroyers. More bad news, the team have just suffered their first casualty, and it's a battleship. Well, it's a battle cruiser, the Tier 8 HMS Hawk. On the plus side, at least the matchmaker hasn't tried to sneak a couple of extra carriers in under the guise of hybrids. And just for a change, the only guaranteed radar in play is actually on Flambas's team in the shape of the USS Indianapolis. Well, there's no guarantee that the Indianapolis has actually picked radar, but the alternative is a patrol fighter, and I can't think of a single logical reason why anybody would pick a patrol fighter over radar, so we're going to assume that the radar is in fact on Flambas's team. But it is the Indianapolis, it's a tier 7 radar, and it's not very good. We don't know for sure if there are any radars on the enemy team, but there may be as many as 2. The tier 8 HMS Edinburgh and the tier 9 HMS Neptune. Now traditionally those ships do tend to choose smokescreens rather than radars, but until Flambas knows for sure, he's going to just assume that they have radar and treat them accordingly. Speaking of things that he's just going to assume to be on the safe side, because he doesn't have hydro, the Kitakaze doesn't come with it, and a Tirpitz just did a drive-by within 6 kilometres, he's assuming that the Tirpitz has fired torpedoes, into the smokescreen. Tirpitz, of course, sister ship of the Bismarck, and whereas the Bismarck gets hydro, the Tirpitz gets torpedoes with a 6-kilometer range. And they were definitely in range. And yet, no torpedoes. So, good news, I suppose. As is the second kill on the York over there. Although what's not good news is that while that was going on, his team have just lost a further 2 ships. Even worse, they're both destroyers, leaving just Flambas in the Kitakazi and the friendly Yugamo as the only 2 remaining destroyers on the team. They're 100 points behind, they still don't have a cap circle in their possession, and then the Yugamo goes down. So they're now 200 points behind, they still don't have a cap circle in their possession, and Flambas is the only surviving destroyer on the entire team. It is Flambas though, so the team do still have a fighting chance. Not something I can say about these 2 battleships who are playing peekaboo with a destroyer around an island. By some miracle, the Tirpitz only eats 1 of Flambas's torpedoes, but it has caused a flood. I mean, at least he had the sense to vary his course and speed when he peeked out around the side of the island, presumably to try to reacquire Flambas. I mean, they know he's here. There was an extremely angry-looking smoke screen on the other side of this island not that long ago. They know there's a destroyer here. The Tirpitz is playing an awfully dangerous game. The Sovietsky Soyuz, slightly further north, at least has the sense to keep some distance between himself and this island that keeps launching torpedoes at them. And it looks like he did narrowly avoid some of those torpedoes by virtue of the Tirpitz detecting them with its face. He's managed to set an additional fire on the Tirpitz, and the damage is continuing to tick. However, they don't really have an awful lot of time to screw around. The enemy team have 2 cap circles, they're 1 kill and 200 points ahead. And it's at about this point where I pretty much start running out of excuses to make for these 2 enemy battleships. The Tirpitz is coming back. And he's not alone. Yep, there's the Sovietsky Soyuz. The team do manage to claw a kill back with one of their cruisers knocking out the enemy Kitakazi, but then the cruiser basically dies almost immediately afterwards. However, these 2 battleships, the Sovietsky Soyuz in particular, which I'll remind you doesn't have hydro, these guys are doing their damnedest to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I mean, what battleship does a point-blank range, low-speed drive-by of a torpedo dispensing smokescreen? And, well, that guy, that too. He manages to catch all but 1 of the torpedoes, which is the only reason he's still alive. Oh wait, no. 2 of them missed. 1 only just. But, well, yeah, that's a thing that just happened. Flambas needs to finish him off quickly, of course. A fire would do. Any fire, since his damage control's on cooldown. There's the fire. He's now dead. That is going to be... There's the high caliber award. We have to thank the Sovietsky Soyuz for that one. He was basically on full health. And there's Flambas's 3rd kill. Now he needs to capitalise on that and make sure that the Tirpitz doesn't get away either. The Tirpitz, of course, it looks like he's in range of the Scharnhorst 43 secondaries, so there is basically no way that Tirpitz is getting out of this one alive. Not with a Kitakazi and a Scharnhorst shooting at him. He's trying to out-heal it. There's another fire. It's still burning. Got to nail him before the smoke screen expires. And he's got him. The team are no longer in imminent danger of losing, although they did just lose their Indianapolis, so both teams have 6 kills. Oh, there's the enemy carrier. Too far out of range for Flambas to do anything about it. Can't say the same about the Scharnhorst 43 though, who is definitely shooting at it. They now have 2 cap circles. The enemy team are still ahead on points, although not by much. The enemy Indomitable was in a tough position. I mean, sailing out into open water in front of a Scharnhorst. Well, yeah, but his options were stay behind the island and have the Scharnhorst sail up there and kill him. So he's trying to get into cover behind that other island. Of course, the Scharnhorst has a very, very fast reload, but it looks like the Indomitable is about to make it, and then he sails into the island that he was trying to take cover behind. So he's now basically dead as well. This is great news. The Indomitable does still have aircraft up. Or does it? Well, even if it did, they're not going to be around forever. Yeah, it does. There's some dive bombers over there, but they're not going to be around forever. So that's great news. Of course, every silver lining has a cloud behind it, and the team have just lost a battleship. The Hyuga has gone down. So they were fractionally ahead on points for a couple of seconds, but yeah, not anymore. They do still have those 2 caps, though. So providing they can hold on to them and not lose any more ships, they should start to slowly pull ahead on points. Of course, that's a fairly big ask. And what the team fairly obviously need to do now, and to their credit, it looks like they are at least trying to do that, is hold on to that central cap at Bravo. Defend that with their lives. And, of course, that is when somebody on the enemy team, almost certainly the Yugamo, starts flipping it. Now, the friendly carrier, because the team had an Indomitable of their own, could be of assistance here. But he's not going to be a whole lot of use. Dug into the bottom southwest corner of the map, trying to escape onto 2 brothers. Something that Flambas has already pointed out and suggests that he might be of more use to the team if he was moving up to somewhere like map grid F2, where he can still be as far away as possible from the enemy team, in cover behind islands, but a little bit closer to where the action is, and be cycling his aircraft a hell of a lot more efficiently. To his credit, he is paying attention. It's just going to take him some time. It's not necessarily time that the team can afford to waste because, well, they don't have a kill advantage. They're about to lose the cap advantage, which means they've also just lost the points advantage. So because he was too far away, the carrier basically couldn't get his aircraft there in time in order to spot what was almost certainly the Yugamo. Hang on a second though, Jingles, there's a smoke screen all the way over there on the other side of the cap circle. Well, I'm fairly sure that's the Neptune. Now there's the Edinburgh. Now, remember, the Edinburgh gets a choice, radar or smoke. I think we're fairly confident at this point that the smoke screen on the other side of the map, on the far side of the island, was the Neptune. So we can probably safely assume that the Neptune does not have radar. The Edinburgh, however, might. And in the absence of any useful aerial spotting, that means Flambas is basically the eyes and ears of the team over here. Looks like the Edinburgh is being withered down by the Scharnhorst 43 secondaries, amongst other things. Flambas trying to keep eyes on him, tracking where he's going by using the torpedo launcher, and it's here where, while he's checking behind him to make sure he's not going to do anything dumb like run himself aground in front of the Edinburgh, he loads the armour piercing. And he's clearly thinking about it, but the Edinburgh has too much health. And it's imperative that Flambas stays alive rather than trying to just score a little bit of extra damage. I mean, he's not going to kill the Edinburgh with a single salvo. He's far more valuable to the team alive rather than just trying to score a little bit of extra damage against a ship that he's not going to be able to kill anyway and risk giving his position away. Particularly because the team can't afford the points loss of losing another ship. And several other ships on the team are particularly low on health. So the Edinburgh's made it in cover behind the island, which isn't great. Is that the Neptune? That looks like 5-inch armour piercing. Judging by the volume of fire and the smoke screen, that is the Neptune. Okay, so we know the Neptune doesn't have radar. It can't have radar and smoke at the same time. So this presents a bit of an opportunity. If the Edinburgh does have radar, he's almost certainly not going to use it when he's behind the island and he can't take advantage of shooting at whatever it reveals himself. Flambas hits the torpedo reload booster and dumps all of his torpedoes into that smoke screen. Again, has to be extremely careful to not get spotted here, because that's a Duke of York, and, well, it's a battleship known for having particularly potent high explosive shells, and it would not hesitate to unload them into a destroyer when it sees one. Edinburgh's gotten respotted. This is a bit of a risk, because he doesn't know exactly where the Yugamo is, and it could be sitting inside that central cap circle at Bravo, and see him as he shoots. But he gets away with it. He is not spotted. And there goes the Neptune, and there's the Kraken unleashed. And shooting at the Edinburgh there wasn't really that much of a risk, because even if the Yugamo had spotted him, the only thing, and it didn't, but the only thing that would have been in a position to actually shoot at him would have been the Yugamo, and the Yugamo's not going to want to do that and give its own position away, so it was a calculated risk and it paid off. They are still behind on points though. and the enemy team do still have 2 of those cap circles. So despite the loss of the Neptune, they're still 200 points ahead, and they're going further ahead with each passing second that they control 2 of those cap circles. So, let's have a look and see what we can do about that. Keeping a good eye around him for potential threats, but most of them are on the far side of that island over there to the right. So it's possible that he might have some idea. Aha, torpedoes. He's pinging the map to ask the carrier to go and spot, because he's fairly sure that the location where he's pinging is where the Yugomo is. Sadly, he's likely to die of old age before the friendly carrier does anything useful. If you look at the map, you'll see that the friendly carrier is instead engaged with the enemy battleships all the way down to the south that he is sailing towards. Oh shit, this is bad. Okay, spotted. In front, this is really bad news. The only good news here is that the Edinburgh is the only one that's actually in a position to shoot at him, but it's entirely capable of killing him, so he uses his last charge of smoke. Survives by the skin of his teeth. There's the Confederate award. The Aegir up to the north has used its hydro after it ate a torpedo. However, that is going to prove to be beneficial. He's now opening up on the... oh yeah, the Edinburgh. I mean, everybody's shooting at the Edinburgh now. Unfortunately, it does have a very, very good heel, and that's going to be a problem, because obvious smoke screen is obvious, and there is a Yugomo out there. The Edinburgh's launched torpedoes. He needs this Edinburgh dead so he can get out of this smoke screen before he suffers the same fate as the Neptune that he torpedoed earlier. So he pokes out of the smoke in order to reacquire the Edinburgh, primarily for the rest of his team. Come on, guys, finish this guy off so we can get the hell out of here. And to their credit, the team are opening up, and that's exactly what he didn't want to happen. The Yugomo has done exactly the same thing that he did to the Neptune, and he's out of here. If the team had just been a little faster at taking out the Edinburgh, or if the Edinburgh's heel hadn't been as good as it was, he probably would have survived that. But he didn't, and now it's up to the rest of the team, who, by the way, are still 200 points behind. But thanks to the Giuseppe Verde over here, they are flipping this central cap at Bravo, and the Aegir is almost in position to flip the other cap at Charlie, which is exactly what he's been advised to do. If they can take all 3 of these cap circles and stay alive, there is a slim chance that they can actually win. If they can all stay alive. Now, the Giuseppe Verde is obviously spotted, so he's not really losing anything by shooting at the Edinburgh. In fact, the Edinburgh stands to lose a lot more, and he did, by shooting at the Giuseppe Verde. So, the team's carrier has been lost, of course, because he was sailing towards the enemy battleships instead of away from them, as he was being told to do. But now, the Giuseppe Verde needs to stay alive, the Scharnhorst needs to stay alive, and the Aegir needs to stay alive after he's flipped that cap at Charlie. With all 3 caps under their possession, as long as nobody does anything stupid like sailing towards the enemy team instead of away from them. Dude, what are you doing? You don't have the health for this. Relax. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to get an island between himself and where he thinks the Yugomo is. He's not trying to win any harder. The team are telling him in chat, the Yugomo is going to be going for you. You're a low health battleship. He's a destroyer. There is no way you are going to see him until it is way too late. Well, let's be realistic here. They're probably never even going to see the Yugomo at all. He hasn't actually been spotted since 7 minutes into the battle. They might see his torpedoes, though, right before they kill somebody. So Giuseppe here is just trying to sail as unpredictable a path as possible. I mean, you can see where the Yugomo was last spotted on the map. He's actually right on top of where the Aegir is right now, but that was, well, more than 10 minutes ago. I mean, he could be absolutely anywhere. We don't know for sure whether or not the Giuseppe is spotted. I suspect he probably is, and he's desperately trying not to become the Yugomo's next victim. And then, with the enemy team still 60 points ahead and less than a minute of the battle remaining, somebody starts flipping the cap circle at Alpha, which means they no longer have the points coming in from it. even if the enemy team don't either, because they haven't yet captured it. Oh, this is going to be... Oh, they see the Scharnhorst. I mean, he has the sense to run and not get involved. Giuseppe here now has the luxury of just turning around and steaming away as fast as he can. I'm pretty sure he isn't spotted. It's just impossible to predict which team is going to win. And then with 1 second to go, the team creep ahead by a single point and snatch victory from the very jaws of defeat. A victory that I'm fairly sure nobody on the team expected, but which happened anyway. And it is yet another of the closest results I have ever seen in a game of World of Warships. Flambas, not top of the team. That honour goes to the Giuseppe Verde, who looked like he was trying to throw at the very end of the game, but absolutely knew what he was doing. So I have to say, good job to all of the survivors on the team there for holding their nerve, even though there was by no means any guarantee that it was going to work, but seeing it through to a successful conclusion. And I hope you've enjoyed watching it, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.